Oh, hello and welcome to another episode of Worlds Collide. I'm Justin.
And I'm Mitch.
And today we are bringing you Iron Man.
The invincible Iron Man. The Golden Avenger.
Yes. Genius engineer. Playboy philanthropist. 26?
Yes. Weapons manufacturer, industrialist, capitalist.
Now get this. Okay, so he was originally created by four comic book writers.
Yes.
Now, Stan Lee used him as a fuck you to young readers.
I read it wasn't a fuck you, it was more like a dare.
In the sense, yes. It was more of, hey, our readers really don't like the war and armies and this and that. We're going to make a guy who makes bombs and sells them to the army.
Yeah, and see if we could get him over.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was kind of like a behind-the-scenes backdoor entrance to, here, we're going to get you to like what you hate.
Yeah, he really is the representation of everything that people hated at that time, because this was at the height of the Cold Wars.
Yes, he decided, he toyed with making the idea of a rich businessman hero.
Yes.
And welcome, Tony Stark.
Yes. Now, I've subscribed to that Marvel Unlimited, where I have access to all that library, so I've been reading the original run of Iron Man, and the original run of Iron Man was a product of its time. It was very racist.
Yeah, well, his origin's been redone many times.
Yes.
Every time we have a war, every 10 to 20 years, they redo Iron Man's origin.
Yeah.
To fit the cause.
Very often in this comic do they use the word commie.
I'm not surprised, because who were the big threats of the 1960s?
It was
Vietnam War and the Cold War.
Yeah.
Right? So you're either, a Viet.
Yeah.
Or
a Russian.
You're a Russian.
Yeah. And that was all of
You're
Iron
the
Man.
enemies. You're the only two enemies.
And that was all of Iron Man's villains. I think it's safe to assume anybody who's watching this, you've seen the Iron Man movie. Let me tell you right now, the Iron Man movie was very accurate to the comic book origins.
Not just that, it was very accurate to origin stories in general.
Yeah.
In the sense that it gave you the Sam Raimi Spider-Man vibes, where it went through the process.
Yeah.
Of, I'm learning to become this thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's not you're entering into the role.
No.
You learning it as you go along, and some of my favorite scenes from the Iron Man movies are when he's in his lab, when he's tinkering, when he's testing new gadgets, new products, new weapons, and he's, alright, here, test number whatever, and he gets flipped into a wall, or he's like, this thrusters throw him across the room, or he goes to land. That was one of my funniest memories from the film. When he goes to land, he gets back to his house after, patrolling, and he turns off the thrusters on his suit. Well, he hadn't touched the floor yet.
Yeah.
His suit's really heavy, apparently. He went through, 3 floors of, his own building. He, wound up in the basement, all because he didn't hit his thrusters off after touching down. Just things like that. Hilarious.
It's funny because his armor started off as heavy, but it's throughout the years had reduced in weight.
To mere nanos.
Well, I had read 15 pounds was the weight of his armor.
Yeah. Freaking ridiculous. I got a weight vest upstairs that heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's an armor suit that adds 15 inches to him, and it only weighs 15 pounds.
It adds 15 inches of thickness?
Of height.
Oh, height.
Yeah. Armor adds 5 inches. Adds 5 inches to his height, but it only weighs 25 pounds.
And you gotta figure that's encompassing him, so that's maybe 2 inches thick.
Yeah.
Like the whole armor all the way around.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so we mentioned his origin. Has been changed many times. Reiterated with different nationalities being the enemy.
Yes.
I should say, because it's the same origin.
Yes.
Different enemy.
Yeah, because in the movie it was Iraqi.
I believe it was the Taliban or something.
Yeah.
Whereas in his original debut, what was it, 1963?
1963, his first issue
was against the Vietnam.
Yes.
And then that was later changed, I believe, in the 80s or 90s to the Gulf War.
Yes.
And then again, like we said, the Taliban. So it's never changing. Hello, Spider.
Yes.
ever changing event.
Yeah, much like how the war that Punisher fought in, that changes as the generations progress to keep it more relevant to the modern times.
Well, something we actually didn't mention in our last episode with Fantastic Four. They're World War II veterans.
Yeah.
Originally.
Yeah.
You would never believe that, though, in anything that we've ever seen. The products of their movies,
No.
even the TV shows, because they're not dating them that far back, but they are.
Yeah.
So, it's funny. I found that out today, actually, researching Iron Man.
Yeah. Well, I remember another example of that. I don't know if I said this before, but I remember reading this comic, the Spider-Man comic, and it was set in the 90s, and they do a flashback, and the flashback shows Peter at a disco bar.
Right. It's like,
this doesn't add up.
no.
But yeah, so his first appearance was in Astonishing Tales number 39 in 1963.
And I believe it was 1966 when he got his own run.
That's right. He got his first run. 1968. Iron Man issue number 1 in 1968. Ran to issue 332 in 1996.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a stretch.
Yeah.
A lot of commies throughout those 300 issues.
Yes. Ranked 12th on IGN's 2011 Top 100 comic book heroes.
Yep.
And then third in their 2012 Top 50 Avengers.
Okay. Now, he's led the team, I believe, in the current continuity of the Avengers. I think he's team leader.
He's the founder.
Yeah.
And he's been, the leadership passes between Iron Man and Captain America. Iron Man will pass the leadership to Captain America, but when Captain America isn't disposed, Iron Man will take control, or depending on the situation, Iron Man will take control. Like, if it's a science-based threat, Iron Man's going to take over because that's more of Iron Man's forte than Captain America.
Fit for the job.
That's right.
Now, I think I was talking about more in current content. We're not even going to get that far ahead.
No.
Today, we're only going to bring Iron Man episode up to Civil War, I believe.
That's right, yeah. But current continuity, Tony Stark's not even Iron Man right now.
That's what I mean. It's like, there's lots of big changes.
Yeah.
Lots of big changes. So we'll talk about all that in later episodes because we don't want to confuse you too much.
Yeah.
We don't want to put you through the ringer of, Doctor Doom and someone else.
Actually, I'm not going to touch it. I wasn't going to touch.
We're not even going to do that.
I wasn't going to touch about that. So what I was going to mention, though, I will mention at the end of this episode. This is going to be one of those things I'll be wrapping up with.
All right.
But we'll get to that. That's the end of the episode.
Keep you waiting.
Yes.
Patiently.
Tony Stark was based off of Howard Hughes, I found out, which makes sense.
Oh. Who is that?
Howard Hughes?
Yes. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that name.
You ever seen the movie The Aviator starring Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yes.
That's Howard Hughes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Howard Hughes was a rich philanthropist, inventor, adventurer, ladies' man.
Yeah, okay. There's Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And who better to play the role in the movie than the guy in real life?
Yeah.
Of course, Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
So fitting.
Yeah, it was really fitting.
Hey, we want you to just be yourself on camera.
Yeah.
Okay?
It was as good casting as getting Patrick Stewart to play Xavier and getting J.K. Rowling to play J. Jonah Jameson. Or no, J.K. Simmons, sorry.
I'm like, who are you talking about?
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling.
Yeah. J.K. Simmons to play J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already mentioned that he was primarily a hero against communists and Vietnamese and Russian villains.
That was his main thing. Now, his list of other enemies, I believe we were talking about just before we flipped the camera live here.
Yes.
So he has a plethora of villains.
Yes.
If we're watching the cartoon from the 1994 to 1996 run.
Yeah. Which is on Disney Plus, FYI, if you wanted to check it out. I did check out a couple of episodes yesterday.
You see pretty much his big gallery of villains.
Yes.
All on that TV show. But his main reoccurring ones are the Mandarin.
Yes, Mandarin and MODOK. I'm a big fan of MODOK. I'm a big fan of Mandarin, too. I don't know if they ever showcased this in the cartoon, but I did do research on Mandarin years ago. And I found out that Mandarin, not only is he powerful with his rings, we'll have to do an episode on Mandarin. Yeah.
He's a very adept fighter.
Yeah. He is so good at martial arts, he was actually able to disassemble Iron Man's armor with his bare hands. With just martial arts.
Christ.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So the big thing that I've had issue with in the Marvel movies is they keep trying to correct comic history mistakes. I'm going to say it in that phrasing. In the sense that, sure, they're products of the time and there's been some racism. And Marvel's tried overly hard at correcting this to the point where they've made so much inaccuracy to the original stories that fans have gotten just downright pissed.
You're talking about their Mandarin?
Mandarin and was it the Elder One from Doctor Strange?
Yeah.
Examples such as those. And, oh fuck, who do we got coming? Shaolin?
Oh, Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi? I don't even want to think about the bullshit they're gonna pull in that movie. Because like these are examples though of historical racism in comics that they're trying not to reiterate in our current film and movie like time, and I understand it, but I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
I think that you should just stick to the origin because your cop-out can be blame the origin.
Yeah.
That's why I did it. I'm just sticking for her historical accuracy.
I could have gone with an actual Mandarin with the 10 rings, like actual Mandarin.
I would have loved it. Like, he's named that for the reason. Don't make him not Mandarin.
Yeah.
Make him Mandarin.
Yeah. Yeah.
He came from, like his whole origin shot.
So once again, we will do an episode on Mandarin because he deserves it. But just so you know, people who watched Iron Man 3 but don't know who Mandarin is.
Not Ben Kingsley.
The Mandarin is a Asian overlord who... everybody fears, and rightfully so. He got these 10 rings from an alien spaceship. And these rings give him various powers. Each ring has a different power. And these powers are like equivalent to the Infinity Stone. These rings give him the ability to manipulate matter, to teleport, to transmute, to disintegrate, to mind control, telekinesis.
A much more undermotivated Thanos.
Yes.
In the sense that he has all the power that Thanos could ever have with the gauntlet, but he just doesn't really use it other than to fuck with Iron Man.
That's right.
That is the literal difference between him and Thanos with the gauntlet and the rings. Thanos wanted to rule the universe. Mandarin is very narrow focused, very small brain in the sense. For a very smart guy.
Because he's also like
very short
Tony Stark's equal in intellect.
Yeah,
Doctor Doom is Mr. Fantastic's equal. The Mandarin is Iron Man's equal.
Absolutely, in science, engineering, medicine, you name it. Like they're both. Mandarin's probably even more knowledgeable in medicine and these other things than Tony.
Yeah. So that's who the Mandarin is. We will do a full episode on him because he deserves it. He is a more major villain of the Marvel Universe that hasn't been given his chance to shine, I feel like.
Yeah, I really wish they had done him right in Iron Man 3, I believe. And
a couple of others
I don't think they'll ever get the chance to redeem that.
A couple of other major Marvel villains that they haven't given a time to shine yet is Kang. They haven't...
Kang, the Decapitator?
No, Kang, the Time Traveler.
Oh, yeah. Well, he becomes Iron Lad later.
Yeah.
The Grey Gargoyle.
The Grey Gargoyle was never a major villain.
What was his name? The Red Dynamo.
Red Dynamo's a good villain. He's still not a major villain. He's an Iron Man villain, and he is a good Iron Man villain, but he's not a world-threatening villain.
He's no Fing Fang Foom shapeshifting dragon from another world.
Even Fing Fang Foom, he doesn't... Like, he's powerful, but he's not, like, world-threatening.
No, because he is more, as dragons tend to be, self-isolating.
Yeah.
He is not... He's thrown into events by other people. Like, the Mandarin will orchestrate him to go fuck with someone.
Yeah.
Or for him to go attack Iron Man. But, like, on his own, he's not, like, an ever-present threat.
No.
And that's the funny thing about Iron Man, though. He tends to make a lot of his own enemies himself.
Yes.
And he tends to cause a lot of his own problems in the sense that, well, yeah, for all the new weapons and gadgets you make for your suits, well, they're also out there in the world being used against you. Ultron is one of your prime examples.
Well, he's more of a Hank Pym example, but yes.
Yes.
Here's a factoid that I read about Iron Man that I did not know until today.
Okay, lay it on me.
All right, so apparently, more than any other hero, more than any other title, Iron Man got the most fan mail from women.
I actually did hear that one today too. I was kind of going over and be like, why would that be?
Well, because he's rich, he's powerful, he's shown as a ladies' man. He's got nice cars, he's got nice toys.
Not alien.
Yep.
Not disfigured.
Yep. And
he's normal human.
And he's drawn proportionately. Like, I'm reading these original comics run, and I kind of like how he's drawn. He's drawn very proportionately. He's drawn better than most comic book characters are drawn for that time period.
It's funny. It's funny that they would have such received mail from the female audience.
Yeah.
From a guy in a metal suit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys are fantasizing over a robot half the time.
Yeah. So, as I'm reading these, the first issue, you see him in that big, clunky gray armor like you've seen in the movie. The second issue, the second issue, he's still in that armor, fighting crime, but that presence is he's not very friendly looking. He was scaring kids and whatnot, so that's when he changed the color to the golden version.
But he wasn't only just scaring kids and, just civilians. It was too heavy, clunky, and slow. I believe one of his first villains he went against thwarted him by basically out moving. He just couldn't move fast enough, and he put him in water or something.
Actually, the issue where he changed his suit to the red and yellow suit for the first time was actually Puppet Man, and
yes,
Puppet Man had a voodoo doll of Iron Man, and he would be crushing him, and that alone was disabling Iron Man. He almost died because his armor ran out of power trying to survive the crushing of Puppet Man.
So basically, the bigger suit was taking up too much energy from his arc reactor. He needed something that was more power efficient and smaller.
That's right. That's the other thing, is that originally he didn't have the arc reactor. Originally, it was a mechanical heart with using his theoretical transistors, is what he called it. Transistors. And they threw around transistors, the word transistors, a lot.
Well, he put his transistors on Captain America's shield at one point so it could fly back to him. But
yeah, it's because they don't really know electrical engineering.
They're just making up words.
They're comic book writers. That's right.
This is a gadget.
That's right. But when his original run, he literally had to plug himself into a household outlet to survive.
Oh no, this is Europe. No cords.
Like one time when the issue where Happy and Pepper Potts got introduced, Iron Man was down for the count, and instead of it was Tony Stark. He collapsed. Not as Iron Man, but just as Tony Stark, he collapsed, and Happy was going to bring him to the hospital, and Tony said, "Don't bring me to the hospital, just bring me to my hotel room." And in his thought bubble is saying, "I don't want doctors to be operating on me, finding the mechanical vest that he's wearing. All I need is to plug myself in." And then they show him in his hotel room, and he's got himself plugged into an electrical socket.
That's awesome. That's so good. I don't need all this. Just
no Bowser.
Give me an outlet. All right, you lay down. All right, lay down. It's Iron Man time.
So, okay, going over his biography. His real name is Anthony Edward Stark, and that was right from the get-go.
Yup.
Son of wealthy industrialist Howard Stark and Maria Stark.
Yep.
Entered MIT at the age of 15 to study engineering and received his master's in engineering and physics.
By 19.
Yep. Inherited the Stark Industries after his parents died in the car crash, just like is shown in the movies.
After they died in the car crash, he inherited the company, all the money, and he bought out the company of the car that caused his parents' death because there was a faulty brake line, and he said that'll never happen again. So he bought the company, fixed the brake line, and in an attempt to remedy future catastrophes, but
that is a constant reoccurring theme with Tony Stark. Every time something goes wrong that wasn't under his control, he buys it so that it is now under his control.
Yeah. I'm going to try and fix this. You know what? No one fixes it better than me. I'm just going to take control.
Yep.
But he later finds out that it was an organized hit, essentially.
Yeah. Stark invented various equipment for the Marvel Universe, including the Quinjet used by the Avengers. That was invented by Tony Stark, as well as the image inducers used by the X-Men.
Ooh.
I didn't know that part. I didn't know he invented that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So sort of, you know how we're saying that in the movie it was the Taliban who captured Tony Stark. In the comics it was Vietnamese. The Vietnamese guy was named Wong Chu.
Wong Chu, and then
and he got paired up with
Ural or
Ho Yin Sen was the engineer that he got paired up with.
So that name does change. Okay.
Yeah. So and Ho Yin Sen was a Nobel Prize winning physicist that Tony Stark idolized. So Tony Stark knew who he was.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
I wish they kept that.
Yeah.
That he was familiar, because obviously in the movie, I guess it goes to show Tony's character.
Yeah.
This all happens within like the first 15, 20 minutes of the movie, right? Boom,
Yeah.
explosion, kidnapped, you're in the cave, you meet this dude, you're held hostage, you make a suit.
Yeah.
And through all this, he meets this other captor of his, and this captor vouches for him, says save this guy's life, hooks up the battery, saves his life. It's not till days later, months later, weeks later, by the way, what's your name?
Yeah.
And Tony hasn't even fucking asked this guy's name until weeks later. And they're working on a project. And he's like, oh, he did something cool. He taught him something. And it's like, oh, what's your name?
Yeah.
Like, that just goes to show
Can
the character.
Can I call you something else other than hey you?
Pretty much. Just goes to show how fucking, what a narcissist, like, how self-absorbed he is.
Yeah.
I don't even care your name. Yeah, you might have saved me. You might be the only person I actually talked to in this cave.
Yeah.
Fuck your name.
Turns out that part in the movie where he sacrifices himself to give Tony Stark enough time to power up the armor, that actually happened in the comics too.
Yes. I liked that they kept that.
Yeah. It's
like, you know what, we're just not going to have enough time. Like, I'll buy you some time.
Yeah.
I'll buy you time.
Yeah.
Don't waste it.
Yeah. Eventually, still in the 60s, he eventually does cure his heart by developing the...
it's artificial heart transplant, I believe.
Yeah.
Was it mechanical or just artificial?
Just artificial.
Yeah, I don't think it verifies.
Yeah. Yeah, just artificial, mechanical. Yeah.
Same shit.
Yeah. One of the most famous stories of Iron Man is called Demon in the Bottle. That was in Iron Man issue number 120, from issues number 120 to 128. Demon in the Bottle was a story where, once again, this is something that viewers might not be aware of if you just watch the movies. Tony Stark has a alcohol dependency.
Oh, yes.
And Demon in the Bottle is the one that really addresses that.
Yeah, it's where he really hits the bottle hard.
Yeah.
And, like, kind of falls off the deep end. It just goes into full relapse.
Actually, so... in that one there, they addressed the issue that Tony Stark has that dependency of alcohol on. He's an alcoholic, but he gets over it. But then shortly afterward, there's another story where Obadiah Stane, the villain from the first movie, played by the dude,
the Lebowski. What the hell?
Yeah,
Jeff Bridges.
Yes.
Yes. Those are. Pop culture test of the day.
Yes. But Obadiah Stane ended up manipulating Stark into a relapse, which caused Tony to lose Stark International to Stane. Lost
control of the company, lost all his money, lost everything.
Became homeless.
Yeah.
But then eventually, and Rhodes, Rhodey, his best friend, James Rhodes. Sorry, I was blanking on his first name. He replaced Tony as Iron Man.
But prior to that, he was probably already War Machine.
No.
Oh, he was.
This is before. This all takes place before War Machine.
Origin.
Yeah. So because the Iron Man armor wasn't properly calibrated for Rhodes, Rose ended up
fucked with him, right? In
Yeah,
his mental state, it kind of gave him headaches and like.
started getting paranoid.
Yeah.
And he ended up becoming volatile, and he ended up going on a rampage.
It was essentially sensory overload and like brain manipulation of the HUD inside the Iron Man.
Yeah. So when Rhodes went on that rampage, Stark had to defeat him by using a replica of his Mark I armor.
Yeah, like his low budget, like shitty first cave suit.
Yeah. Then Stain ends up creating his own armor called the Ironmonger, which is the suit you saw in the first movie.
Which is hilarious because I was watching clips of that first movie today, and I never knew that creature, that thing had a name. I thought it was just like he says it. Oh, Obadiah says it at one point. You and I, we're Ironmongers. We're war, blah, blah, blah. We build bombs and weapons. But he's talking to Tony in the sense of talking about Stark Industries. This is what we do. We're Ironmongers.
Yeah.
And he says his own name.
Yeah.
And I never caught that before. And I've probably seen that movie 6, 7, 8, 9 times by now.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Easter egg.
Yeah. But after Ironmonger loses to Iron Man, rather than giving Tony the satisfaction of bringing Obadiah to justice, he ends up killing himself.
Yeah, pops back his own head and fires a blaster laser at his own head. Just decapitates himself, pretty much.
Yeah.
Just can't go out willingly.
No. That dick move. Ultimate dick move.
Ultimate dick move.
Kind of like what Kraven did. Actually, it's exactly what Kraven did. Because Kraven buried Spider-Man alive, then went about pretending to be Spider-Man, and then proving that he was a better Spider-Man than Spider-Man is. And then after all that, after Spider-Man ends up digging himself out of his own grave, finds Kraven, and Kraven shot himself in the head. So Spider-Man could never get his vengeance. Yeah. Stark ends up... So, some further stories that I read up. So, after that, Stark ends up publicly firing Iron Man. So, at this point, the public still doesn't know who Iron Man is.
Stark has been under the ruse that Iron Man is his bodyguard.
Yes. The bodyguard of his... Not him personally, but of his company, of his industries.
Yes. And then he ends up hiring some other guy as his bodyguard later who ends up getting jealous.
Yeah.
Thinking Iron Man's stealing his thunder.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Iron Man is Tony.
That was Happy.
Yeah, that was Happy.
Yeah. By the way, as I'm reading these original stories, Happy, not a likable character. Pepper Potts, also not a likable character.
Really?
Yeah, not initially.
What's offsetting about them?
It's just those two, they bickered like 5-year-old kids.
They still do a little, but not really. It wasn't shown. It wasn't portrayed that way in the movie.
Yeah, but no, not like this. Like Pepper Potts is outright insulting to Happy, but Happy takes these insults and just, oh, I know you don't really believe me. I don't think you really believe that, beautiful, and just keeps on trying to hit on her, and it's just.
She's like, no, you're disgusting. Fuck off. I know you don't mean that.
That's essentially exactly that is the dialogue between the two of them.
Oh well, that's pretty dated for that time.
Yes.
That's the schmuck trying to get the girl, and the girl being a cunt.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, so Stark ends up having to publicly fire Iron Man because this happens in the 90s. This story, or in the early 2000s, actually. This story where Iron Man he starts going after everybody who has ever used Stark Tech to make their own weapons and armor.
Well, you see it in the movie at one point when he sees the footage on TV of whoever had, hijacked the recent shipment, and then it shows the one bad guy, loading in his missiles and shit, and when he blasts the images of himself, being like, well, I'm pissed at this Tony, flips down the visor, and then he goes out and he fucking takes out all of them. Yeah. That is shown in the first movie. Yeah. Exactly what you're talking about.
But this is going after supervillains too, like Stiltman.
Yeah, so he doesn't have any villains at this point in the movie.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, in the comics, he's going after Stiltman, and he ends up going after a guy named Stingray. Stingray was actually a government operative. And then this is the reason why Tony Stark had to fire Iron Man. To essentially fire himself.
Right.
Because he ended up going after the government-sanctioned Stingray and finding out that Stingray's equipment, not Stark Tech at all. None of it was Stark Tech.
Oh.
Yeah. So...
Hammer?
I don't know. It didn't say, but ultimately it wasn't Stark Tech.
So basically, Iron Man thought he was running around blowing up Stark Tech. Turns out he's actually just like
being a terrorist.
Yes. Sorry.
He ends up after getting fired. He continues trying to he still continues trying to get rid of all the Stark Tech that's out there. It's not under his own control. In the process of that, he ends up letting some villains escape the vault.
And what's the vault? The max security. Who owns it though? It's not Argus.
The vault is government owned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
because this is Marvel, obviously. The vault. Where have we seen the vault? We've seen the vault somewhere.
You've seen the vault. In Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, they showcase the vault, the raft, and the third prison is called the Birdcage? No, that doesn't sound right.
But these are all just like max level security prisons.
That's right.
For like super villains and anti-heroes, whoever, vigilantes, any superpowered people.
That's right. So the vault is mostly for radioactive based, superpowered based, mutant based villains.
Right.
The raft is a prison that is ocean based. So its surface is a boat, but that like a tankard, like a stationary oceanic tankard.
Water, yeah.
But below that, there's a tube that goes all the way down to the bottom of the ocean, and that's where the actual prison is.
Right.
And that's where the big threats are kept.
Okay.
The big world-threatening threats.
Guys, that if they escape, hopefully they drown.
That's right. And as far as the vault goes, that's a place where like Venom would be was in prison, was in the vault. Rhino was in the vault. Electro and Hydro Man and
Okay.
So
it's like Alcatraz for baddies.
That's right.
Arkham. Kinda.
No, Arkham Asylum is an insane asylum. The equivalent to that would be Ravencroft. Ravencroft and Marvel.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah. Bell Rev is the DC equivalent to the Vault.
Bell Rev?
Yeah.
Oh, we saw that in Smallville.
Yeah.
That's where Clark spent lots of time.
Yeah. So after Stark ends up allowing some villains escape the Vault, that was when the U.S. government declared Iron Man as a national threat and an outlaw.
He obviously didn't mean to let them?
No, he did it on purpose.
Oh.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Probably because he was trying to get to Stark Tech. Remember, he's trying to get rid of all that Stark Tech that's not under his control. This also started this also soured the relationship between him and Captain America.
I would believe it.
Yeah.
We're not even at Civil War.
No, we're not. And then after that, Iron Man ends up traveling to Russia, where he accidentally causes the death of the Soviet Titanium Man.
Ooh, and there's been a few Titanium Man.
Yes.
Titanium Man is essentially the same as Iron Man's suit, but bigger, stronger.
Yes.
Same and it blasts like a psionic kind of cannon.
Yeah.
Not whatever blasters he's using.
Yeah. When Iron Man returned, he's faced by the U.S. Commissioned Firepower, and Iron Man wasn't able to defeat Firepower. So, unable to defeat Firepower, Stark ends up faking the death of Iron Man. Not his own death, but fake the death of Iron Man.
Faked Iron Man's death, not Tony Stark's death.
That's right. And then when Firepower goes rogue, Tony Stark ends up creating a new Iron Man suit to fight him, and Tony claimed that it was somebody new as Iron Man. It wasn't the same guy. The guy who
It's someone new. No, I hired a new guy. That guy's fired.
That's right. Well, no, that guy died. Remember?
Trying to explain to the press, like, no, he's dead. This is the replacement.
This is a new guy. Look, different armor.
Can you imagine that? Oh my God.
Stark was and then after that, actually this leads us to the end of the 90s. At the beginning of the 2000s is where Stark was almost killed by Kathy Dare, who was a mentally unbalanced ex-lover of his.
Right, and that is Mistress Mask?
No, it's just a nobody chick.
It's another lover of his who becomes her.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
But she ends up shooting him dead center in the torso, which ends up injuring his spine and paralyzing him.
Oh my God.
And then while trying to fight his paralyzation, he put a nerve chip to his spine to fix the paralysis. But the nerve chip was actually under the control of one of his rival businessmen, the Mars twins, and also Keaton DeWitt. Mm. And DeWitt ends up taking control of Iron Man because he had control over this chip that was controlling all of his own nerves. DeWitt was controlling the chip that was controlling the nerves of Tony Stark, so he was controlling Tony Stark.
Puppet mastering him.
Pretty much. And then when Tony Stark ends up putting on his encephalo armor, which counteracted the control that DeWitt had over Tony Stark.
Yeah, it's a blocker, inhibitor of some sort.
That's right. And then when that happened, DeWitt just disabled the chip altogether, which caused all kinds of nerve damage to Tony Stark. So Stark, left with nerve damage. Stark ends up building a skin made out of artificial nerve circuitry to assist himself. And he ends up starting to pilot a remote-controlled Iron Man. But after fighting against the Masters of Silence, I wanted to research as who the fuck is the Masters of Silence?
Write that down, Kenny. Who the fuck are Masters of Silence?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look that one up for later.
It's such a dumb name. But anyways, after fighting the Masters of Silence, he found that this remote-controlled iron armor suit was inaccurate. It was inadequate, and I'm sorry. This does not happen in the early 2000s. This is all that's still happening in the 90s. Because wait for it. After Iron Man, remote control Iron Man was insufficient, so he ends up building a more heavily armored version, the Variable Threat Response Battlesuit, which would eventually be called the War Machine. And then,
because James Rhodes doesn't become War Machine until the 2000s, right?
The 90s.
It's gotta be 90s.
Yeah, it was the 90s.
1994 cartoon show. He's there.
Yeah. So everything that I've talked about has all been in the 80s and early 90s. I should have wrote down years, but I didn't.
That's okay. So basically, he's been flying around his self-propelled little suit.
Yeah.
He's sitting at home watching on a screen, watching what Iron Man does.
Yeah, but it wasn't
rocking his joystick and hitting his AB buttons.
Pretty much.
Kill them all.
But that wasn't sufficient. So he built the War Machine suit.
Of course, he needed an Xbox controller.
Yeah. And then eventually Tony Stark ends up having to fake his own death so that he could put himself into suspended animation to heal his nerve damage. So at that point there, Rhodes ends up becoming Iron Man again, but this time in the War Machine suit.
Right, now, he doesn't tell James Rhodes, he doesn't tell him about this.
That's right.
He doesn't tell him about his plan.
He didn't tell anybody.
He's dead. No, so when he decides to come back,
everybody was pissed at him.
Yeah, he had a big falling out. That's when War Machine fucks off and says, "This suit's mine. Yeah. I'm leaving to do my own thing.
Yeah,
I'm not working for you. I'm not working under you. I'm not working with you."
Exactly. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Rhodes ends up getting enraged. The two-part ways. Rhodes continues as War Machine and a solo career.
And the birth of War Machine begins. So the big difference between War Machine and Iron Man's armor is War Machine's is pretty much all gray with some black and blue trim, I believe. Much. Yeah, and he's got a shoulder cannon.
Well, you saw him.
One big thing. He's got his little Gatling gun on his shoulder.
You saw him featured in Iron Man 2 mostly.
The Iron Patriot.
Well, and we saw him in Civil War and...
we got shitty renditions of what War Machine should have been.
Yes. Iron Man 2, it was actually pretty cool because you see him take out his machine guns and his missiles, and that's who War Machine is. War Machine is Iron Man but more heavily armored.
He's all the like grenade launchers and big rockets and like big guns and like
fully automatic weapons.
Yeah, Tony's got little machine guns. He's got lasers and shit. But Rhodes packing the heavy artillery. I need you to blow up that building.
Yeah.
I need you to take out this. I need you to clear this.
Yeah.
Boom.
When you read about somebody being described as a one-man army, like Punisher will be described as a one-man army, that's a figurative. Rhodey, War Machine, is a one-man army.
Like one-man arsenal, like to cover an army.
Yes.
Essentially.
That is War Machine.
Absolutely. So this falling out of theirs, where does it bring us? Where do we lie now?
Okay, so
he's now back awake?
Yep. Tony's back awake. He's back as Iron Man. Eventually becomes Rhodes. Yeah. So using a chip to create a new artificial nervous system, Tony Stark ends up recovering. So Tony Stark ends up recovering by creating a artificial nervous system to replace his damaged nervous system. How insane is that? How, like, when you want to talk about how intelligent Tony Stark is. So I always like the quote from the movie. Tony Stark built that armor with a table of scraps in a freaking cave.
Yeah.
So that's impressive. What's even more impressive is he invents an artificial nervous system. That's nuts.
Well, he creates an artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Jarvis, and then he...
Well, no, okay,
Jarvis actually, that is my mistake.
That's a movie thing.
In comics, Jarvis is actually his butler.
That's right.
It's a real person.
It's his Alfred.
Yeah. But in the movies, it's his...
Although in the original run of comics, there was no Jarvis. Not yet, anyways. Where I was reading, Pepper Potts and Happy, they've been introduced. There's no Jarvis yet, though.
I don't think he comes until later.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah. But... yeah, he's a smart enough dude that... okay, so if he never created an AI in comics, this is his big comics debut.
Yeah.
Like, look, I'm smart. I just created, like, living flesh organs, like, nervous system.
But yeah, this now brings us to the 2000s.
Okay, so that took us from 1963, and now we're in 2000, 2001, what?
Yeah, early 2001, yeah. And in the early 2001 is when Tony Stark's armor starts becoming sentient. Tony Stark has made his armor so smart, so intelligent, so capable of adapting, and ends up becoming sentient. And at first, Tony Stark was okay with this because this was his armor. This sentient armor had improved combat capabilities, much like how Spider-Man didn't question the increase in his powers when he's wearing the Venom symbiote suit, until he found out the symbiote suit was actually trying to take control of his body and making him do evil things. The sentient Iron Armor suit was getting more aggressive. It
as far as it knew, Iron Man gave it one job: fight, win.
Yeah. Well, it started to kill indiscriminately.
That's what I mean. Like, when you give that sense of, I guess, power, right? To something that doesn't understand the power you're giving it to.
Yeah.
It's going to take it too far. When you're beating up bad guys on a regular basis and you're saying, look, I saved the day, this is good, and you're getting praise and love from everyone, well, what's he to know the difference between kicking him and knocking him out and shooting him to knock him out?
Yeah.
It's a pull of the trigger, and it's, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I did the same thing.
What's the difference?
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Try explaining that to a robot.
You can't. All right, sorry about that, folks.
Sorry, we got a knock at the door.
And dogs go crazy.
It's loud, quick.
Yeah. So anyways, with the sentient armor ends up wanting to even replace Tony Stark. Until eventually they end up having a final confrontation on an island. And during this confrontation, Tony Stark ends up suffering a heart attack. And the suit ends up sacrificing itself by building a new mechanical heart for Tony Stark, saving its creator.
Oh.
Going back to the days where he had to plug himself in, because this new mechanical heart is not an arc reactor. It doesn't have its own sustainable energy. So he's going back to the days where he has to plug himself into a receptacle.
Too bad there's no outlets on an island.
Well, exactly. And then Tony Stark ends up going back, after all this happens, Tony Stark ends up going back to a less sophisticated, older model because it kind of scared him. The fact that he accidentally created sentient life.
Didn't mean to do that.
No.
Let's just not do that anymore. Yeah. It's hard to revert. How would you go back after, fighting and going through all these encounters and battles with a spider sense type reflex, and then to turn all that off and be like, holy shit, it's like riding a bike day one again.
Exactly. And then after all that, Tony Stark ends up finally, for the first time, revealing himself as Iron Man in Iron Man Volume 3, issue number 55 in 2002.
Wow, so he comes out to the public.
Yeah, saying, I am Iron Man.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
When did we get the movie? We got our movie in 2008, I want to say.
2008.
And God, seems like a million years ago now. That was the dawn of the MCU.
Yeah.
Like, they were a privatized thing prior to Iron Man.
Yeah.
They're now this mega conglomerate industry of multi-million-dollar movies.
Yeah.
In a video I was watching today, they didn't even have a finished script for Iron Man. They were winging it, pretty much. They're going scene by scene.
No.
For us to have gotten the finished product that we got, amazing.
It's really impressive.
Really impressive, considering they were flying by the seat of their pants.
And consider the fact this was directed by Jon Favreau, who was not a tested director. He was a tested writer and a tested actor, but he was not a tested director.
No, that was his breakthrough. That was his big debut, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
Well, he might have directed this thing here and there, but this was his big blockbuster. Yes.
This is his breakthrough.
Yes.
Into the big leagues of now creating a trilogy and an MC universe around this one character. Like, we may never have had Thor. We may never have had Captain America. There may never have been Avengers. There may never have been Guardians if there wasn't Iron Man.
Exactly.
It all started here.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorites. He's definitely probably one of the ones that I watched the most cartoons of. Like, that whole show, I know I watched the hell out of it.
And admittedly, I'm not going to fake this or lie about this. I always thought Iron Man was a boring character. I was not into Iron Man. I didn't get into Iron Man until the movies. I didn't believe, just like Marvel probably didn't believe, that Iron Man would make a good, interesting movie.
Will he sell? Will he carry? Tony's carried the MCU on his back for 12 plus years now, and we might see him again.
Yeah.
Who knows?
A lot of that has to do with the raw charisma that is Robert Downey Jr.
And that's what I mean. He built this from the ground up. Not just him. I don't want to give him all the credit. There's a lot of people behind the scenes, and there's a lot of other people that go into these movies, but you sold us on Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Before Iron Man.
Yeah.
We did not buy into Iron Man. We bought into Tony.
Yeah.
And for you to say that of a superhero and to take it this many years with a career this fulfilled is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? For a character that started by being blown up and locked in the cave.
Yeah.
Here's a box of scraps and comes out a hero. He is the epitome of the journey.
Yes.
The hero story.
My roommate asked me if I had a choice, who would I choose? If I could be Batman or Iron Man, who would I choose? And 14-year-old me would have been Batman. Present day me, Iron Man. Iron Man is more relatable. Iron Man is more believable. We have an almost real life Iron Man in the name of Elon Musk.
Damn near. Damn near. Well, you gotta remember Iron Man makes mistakes too.
Yeah.
Batman's are more deadly.
Yeah. Batman doesn't make mistakes. And that's the thing. Had Batman ever battled alcoholism? No.
It's better, maybe depression or loneliness. That's about it.
Yeah.
Did he really conquer that battle?
No, he hasn't.
Ongoing.
No, he hasn't grown from the moment his parents died. Really.
His mind is still trapped in that moment,
yeah.
Essentially.
That's why, like, Batman is a cooler character. I mean, like, the guy's a ninja. Of course he's cooler. But who's more relatable? Who's more believable? Tony Stark is.
Who's more powerful? Tony.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Who has more fun?
Tony. Yeah. But yeah, so here's something that I didn't know. So when Tony Stark revealed himself to be Iron Man, there was repercussions to this.
I can imagine.
So revealing himself to be Iron Man invalidated his agreement with the U.S. government. He had an agreement with the U.S. government was protecting his armor from the government from duplicating his work. The agreement said that as long as Tony Stark built the armor, the Iron Man armor for his employees, not for Tony Stark himself. So when it got revealed that Tony Stark was Iron Man this entire time, it invalidated that agreement, and now the government are able to duplicate, to create their own army of Iron Men.
Of course, because it's self-use versus company.
Yeah.
Like, what falls under legal jurisdiction?
Yeah.
He just stepped out of bounds.
So when after that happened, the government started making their own Iron Man, and of course, things go wrong, and things got destroyed, and Tony Stark had to save the day. And then after that, that's when the government decided to appoint Tony Stark as the Secretary of Defense.
Who did they have making the first line of robots? Was it Hammer?
Probably.
Probably Justin Hammer.
Probably.
Another one of his villains. Now, this is one of those villains who's a lot like Tony, but he doesn't ever throw a punch or don the suit himself.
He's actually got a lot of guys like so. Stain is one of them. Hammer is one of them.
So when you're a rich engineer, genius, playboy, billionaire, you don't fight your own battles. You hire other people to go do it for you.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of his enemies tend to do.
Yeah. There's another one that they showed him in the movies too. I'm blanking on his name right now, but there's another one just like Hammer and Obadiah.
I can't remember.
I don't remember his name. I might have written down his name. I don't think I did though. But yeah, so Tony Stark ends up getting named as the Secretary of Defense, so that he could at least, if the government's going to use his technology, at least he can be the Secretary of Defense, so he can monitor and control how that technology is used.
It's probably good.
Yeah. Until...
If you're going to use my toys, I'll tell you how to play them.
Yeah. And he remained the Secretary of Defense until in Avengers Assembled, when Scarlet Witch ends up going nuts. She ends up influencing Tony Stark into going into a tirade against the Latvian ambassador at a United Nations summit.
Okay, so Doctor Doom's daughter convinced Iron Man to go fuck with Doctor Doom's country.
Yes.
Okay, go well.
No.
We'll do that.
And then Scarlet Witch ends up destroying the Avengers Towers and ends up killing Hawkeye, Wonder Man, and Ant-Man. We covered all that in the Scarlet Witch / House of M episode.
That's that whole fiasco. That is where Iron Man goes and the House of M event takes place.
Yes.
And so what does Doom do to Iron Man? Does that all take place in House of M and in the retcon and the solution?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just sitting here waiting for like the sucker punch from Doom. Like, you did what?
No. No, Doom. He has fought Doom a bunch of times. I didn't write anything about Doom in this.
That's okay.
Tony Stark has fought Doom many a times, and eventually, we did cover this when we did Doom, but eventually Doom does become Iron Man, but that's like way later. Oh, and after Scarlet Witch ends up destroying the Avengers Mansion, that was when Tony Stark moved the Avengers base to Stark Towers.
Right, and that's where we basically see it in the last few films.
Yeah.
Endgame and Civil War.
Yeah. And then after that, I actually read this issue, New Avengers Illuminati #1. This was released in 2006. This was, it's revealed that years prior to this issue, Tony Stark started a group of the world's most greatest minds and greatest leaders to form a organization that's going to make decisions that's going to impact how the Earth is going to be ruled and developed.
It's like a high ruling council of intellectuals.
Yeah. And this group consisted of the Black Panther, Professor X, Mr. Fantastic, Black Bolt, Doctor Strange, and Namor. Black Panther ends up declining this invitation. He didn't like the idea of him being part of this. He didn't like the idea of this group. And he didn't want the idea that this group would have access to Wakandan technology and vibranium and all that. So he's just, no, I'm not taking part in this. And he tried to encourage Namor to not take part in this either. And Black Bolt as well.
Black Bolt is leader of the Inhumans, of course.
Yeah. So, and that's why Black Panther, Namor, and Black Bolt were there, because all three of them, and Xavier as well, not only are they all intelligent people, but they're all leaders of their respective groups. Xavier is the leader of the Good Mutants, Black Bolt is the leader of the Inhumans, Namor of Atlantis, and Black Panther of Wakanda. Mm-hmm. And then, so this is the final tidbit. So the final tidbit to wrap up this episode. And this is the reason I wanted to mention this on this episode, because I feel like actually they killed off Iron Man. They might still do the story. So you never know,
because
they might bring him back, but as a different actor. It might not be Robert Downey Jr. Maybe they'll bring him back as a new actor.
No, it'll be Robert Downey, because what they do is he carries on as AI Tony, even after he's dead.
Well, that's currently.
Well, that's what I mean. I believe that'll be what they work into if they bring him back.
Maybe
anything else will be stupid.
But what I'm about to mention is completely something I felt was out of left field when I found out about this. Not today. I knew about this beforehand. Which is why I knew to research this before today's episode.
Okay, what is it?
Is Tony Stark has a brother.
Yeah, I found that out at some point today during the research. It was mentioned, and then I was like, I'm not jumping down that rabbit hole. Yeah.
So Tony Stark doesn't find out about this until 2013. Normally, we like to do these characters up until Civil War, and Tony Stark does not find out about this until way after Civil War. But I want to touch base on this here, because this has a lot to do with his origin, really.
Which one?
Well, his true origin. Because it turns out Tony Stark, Howard Stark...
Secret origin.
Yeah, because Howard Stark is not his biological father. Tony Stark was adopted. And Howard Stark's biological son was Arno Stark. Arno Stark was actually biologically engineered by a alien...
451.
Yes.
Recorder.
A Regalian recorder named 451.
Who was originally seen in issue 6 of Thor way back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a very old character who they just brought back into this year, 2020 of comics.
Well, 2013 is when they did this.
Yeah, and it's basically retelling that.
As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it's these issues here.
Well, basically, Howard Stark was going to have a son born with all kinds of disabilities.
Well, yeah. Well, Howard, when he found out 413's plan, he sabotaged the experiment. Is what happened.
Yes. So basically, Maria and Howard were trying to, get it on, have a child.
Yes.
And they were found unable to.
Yes.
And so he was searching high and low. Basically, it came. His last stop brought him to a Las Vegas bar where he runs into a gray alien. And this gray alien says, you know what, there's this casino where this recorder 451 is supposed to be trapped, and this guy has all the information from forever. He's been around forever. So he sends Howard and this other team of Thunderbolt Ross and other people to go break into this casino. They get this recorder 451, and then they basically find out information from that. And then during that, this recorder tells Howard how he can genetically modify the DNA to be fine or whatever. Well, what he doesn't tell Howard is that he put in some secret self-destruct bomb, some bomb sequence in the DNA.
Yeah.
And so when Howard found this, he went and took that out and changed it.
Yeah.
And so I believe it's still Maria had the child, birthed it. So I believe it is still his in some way, shape, or form.
just engineered to be the most intelligent being alive.
Yes, because for whatever reason they weren't able to have a child, except for Arno, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and Arno is actually, in fact, more intelligent than Tony Stark. But because of Howard's tampering with the experiment, Arno ends up being born crippled and unable to speak. And Tony Stark never found out about this until he ends up finding Arno in the Maria Stark Foundation. And so all these years, Arno Stark has been hidden in the Maria Stark Foundation until Tony Stark found him in 2013. when Tony Stark found out that he's got a brother, they end up teaming up, and they ended up rebuilding the Mandarin's city into their own utopia called Troy.
Really?
Yeah. And then Troy ends up getting attacked by Doctor Doom and various other Iron Man villains. So Iron Man ends up abandoning Troy, leaving it to Arno, and Arno becomes like the ruler of Troy, essentially. This technological utopia.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Arno.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that to wrap up today's episode, but
does he really have any pertinent place in stories going forward?
As a matter of fact, right now in current continuity, Arno is the current Iron Man.
Ooh, okay, so interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. He's not a twin, is he?
No, like I said, Tony was adopted. Arno is is Howard Stark's biological son, sort of.
451 fucked with.
Yeah.
So it's not even Tony.
No.
So 451 was telling all this to Tony, being like, "Yeah, it's you."
No, it's not. It's not Tony. It's Arno. Arno was the genetically engineered child.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I said Arno's more intelligent than Tony. Arno was the genetically engineered child. Tony Stark was adopted. He's just naturally that intelligent. Arno is the genetically engineered brain.
See, all the videos I watched from his secret origin today didn't say that.
Oh, yeah?
It said Tony is this artificially engineered person. It never said that he was a doctor or whatever. So that's interesting.
Well, anyways, so that pretty much wraps up where I wanted to talk about Iron Man anyways. So that's...
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. We'll leave it there then. This brings us up to Civil War.
Yep.
So we're on pace with our other episodes that we've done lately.
Yep.
And then next week, who do we got coming up on the block here, Kenny?
We actually don't have anyone for DC written down.
Okay.
So we'll have to think about this maybe. Let's do another villain.
Let's do another villain. Who's a good villain who is
Catwoman,
relevant?
Talia al Ghul.
Ra's al Ghul.
What movie do we have coming out soon?
We could do Huntress maybe. Wonder Woman's coming out soon.
Oh, she will be the villain there, huh?
Mm-hmm. Not Huntress. Cheetah.
Cheetah.
Yes.
We can get Cheetah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Let's kick it off with Cheetah next week. Okay, so we're flipping back over to DC. And we'll see you guys same time, same place. 8 o'clock start on Twitch TV/NRD Forge.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. This is episode 28. And all our other episodes, we're slowly getting them up on YouTube. So keep checking them out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. And yeah, you'll have all the updates on new content coming out. Thanks for tuning in, guys. You have a great week.